How's it going, guys? And this is Kingy back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today we're going to be tackling the Demon Lord again. And we're going to be doing a full auto 2-key team. So the team is... not that one. So it's this team here. Using Sepulchre Sentinel, Razin, Godseeker, Skullcrush and Farrakhan. So Sepulchre's opening with an A1, Godseeker opens with her A1, Razin doesn't matter, Skullcrusher doesn't matter, and Farrakhan the Fat doesn't matter. All pretty easy, and we'll get into their builds after the run. But for now, let's get straight up into it. Now, the thing about this team, and the reason why I'm doing this, is we heard that there might be coming a autocomplete with Demon Lord. Now, what I suspect, is that in order for the autocomplete to work, it might be like a simulation style, where it'll do the simulation of the clan boss fight in a matter of moments, which means the team will need to be fully auto right from the start. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do a couple videos on fully auto teams and see how they go. And hopefully it helps out some people out there. Fully auto teams just means you click start the battle and that's it. No press a certain ability of somebody or anything like that. We want fully auto on all affinities, and that's what this team is. Fully auto on Nightmare, Ultra Nightmare, all affinities. Easy does it. 2-key team for Ultra Nightmare, I believe a 1-key team for Nightmare very easily. So what we're using is we're using Sepulchre Sentinels, increased defense and block debuffs. We're using Skullcrusher's ally protection and counterattack, and then we're using Godseeker and Aniri's extend buff, and that keeps the team pretty much alive. That's it. That's all that's needed. Now, Razin Scarhide is really cool in this team because his A1 strips buffs, so he can strip that increased attack that the clan boss places on themselves. So if you've seen in that little preset there, I actually did open with Razin's A1 first. This is just so after the clan boss places the increased attack on themselves, he gets the counter attack with his A1, and then he also uses his A1. So I get those two chances, which means I'm pretty much guaranteed to remove that increased attack every time. Now, as for your DPS champions, that is there for damage. That's Razin and Farrakhan the Fat. And what I like about Farrakhan the Fat is that he brings that increased critical rate, which makes it a hell of a lot easier to build every other champion. Building every other champion to 70% critical rate is a lot easier. Now, as for how the team runs, basically, Sepulchre Sentinel, she is on a 4:3 ratio. Her speeds are between 239 and 241, so pretty tight, but not too crazy. She opens with an A1, and then if you want you can prioritize an A2, but I don't think I've ever had any issue with AIs. But what's the harm in prioritizing stuff? So I'll just go through all the champions and let you know what I prioritize there. Now, as for her build, one really important thing is to get her accuracy to that like 210 plus, 220 plus, depending on what masteries you go with. So that's really crucial because that decreased attack that she brings is, well, it's crucial. Then you really want to prioritize her defense and her HP, so that way she can survive. So you want to be hitting about 3.5k. You can go down to 3.3, but you really want to be closer to 3.5k. And I run her in the Aura lead, so I get an extra 25% off of her base defense, and then I also get the increased defense. So she gets up to quite high defense thanks to that. But also her damage is based on defense, so I stacked my Sepulchres up a bit more. But yeah, try and aim for the defense minimum of around 3.5k, and unless their damage is based on defense, you don't need any more than 3.8. It's completely pointless at that point. The difference that it makes is minimal, absolutely minimal. You'll get much more benefit from HP. In saying that, after you've reached your defense desirability, you want to get that HP up. Now, on a stun target, you don't want it to be too high. In this team, my Skullcrusher is the stun target, and his is a little bit too high. For a stun target, you want like say 43k HP. If the team is super tanky, or the stun target has an ally protection on them, then you can get to about like a 47k HP. So that's the sort of range you want to be. I think Skull Crusher's in the 50k range though. Back on Sepulchre Sentinel. So once you've got those survivability stats, then you can worry about the crit cap and the critical damage. Obviously, she only needs 70% critical rate because of Farrakhan the Fat's buff. Although I think critical rate has a chance to drop off of Sepulchre Sentinel because she's on a 4-3, not a 1-to-1 ratio. But even then, what's 1 or 2 hits throughout the whole fight? So you had to stack up her critical rate, critical damage. She doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it all adds up, especially over such a long fight. Yeah, and then as for Goldseeker Aniri, so this is the second fastest champion. She can be a maximum speed of about 186, but you don't really want to be on the maximums, so I have her around 181 or 182, somewhere around there. There's a nice place for her. She opens with an A1 and of course prioritize the A2. Similar to Sepulchre Sentinel, but you just don't need accuracy for her. So you get the survivability stats and defense and HP. Her damage is based on defense, so you can stack it up a little bit more, and she does hit really, really hard. So you get that critical rate up to 70% with Farrakhan, or 100% without an increased critical rate. So get that crit cap on her, and then stack up the critical damage. She does do a ton of damage. I also have mine in a Guardian set. I quite like a Guardian set because it just helps with Skull Crusher being able to take a little bit more of a hit with that stun hit. And then we got Razin Scarhide. Now I have him in the next speed, so that way when he uses A2 and places the decreased defense and the weaken, there's still a couple turns from like a Farrakhan the Fat, possibly with his allied attack ability. So that way, you know, the boss is debuffed, so you get more damage. Just makes sense. So his maximum speed can be 179. But remember, when we talk about maximum speed in this, you want to make sure that going in the fastest to slowest order that I'm telling you these champions. So Razin, a maximum of 179. I'm opening with his A1 and then of course prioritizing the A2 like I said. This way after the clan boss is A1, he gets to use the A1 to help strip, and he also gets the A1 with the counter attack. Now this guy here, he needs that accuracy because you need the debuff, so like that 220 range depending on your masteries. He's going to be the main damage dealer, and he won't be taking a whole lot of damage. He's strong defense base, so I really just prioritize the accuracy, survivability stats, easy enough, critical rate, critical damage, and then try and maybe bump that defense up a bit more so his hits do a decent chunk of damage. Definitely get the Giant Slayer mastery on him. Everybody else is War Master, but for Farrakhan the Fat, but for Razin Scarhide, you want to get Giant Slayer. Everybody else, War Master. And then for Farrakhan the Fat, his speed obviously is a maximum of 178. So if you're running Razin at 179, Farrakhan at 178. But if you're running Razin at say 178, then Farrakhan needs to be 177 or lower. And so it goes. Now, he has no priority. Now, Farrakhan the Fat is really, really good in a reflex set. Reset those abilities and get a lot more ally attacks out. Really, really good. You can also run him in a Guardian set as well, because he doesn't do a whole lot of damage with his hits. Most of his damage comes from poison, HP burn, and of course the ally attacks, plus the buffs. So you can actually get him in a Guardian set, keep his critical damage, you know, moderate, and then he can also help with the stun targets. Now I think I have him with really, really high critical damage. Again, we'll look at the builds after the run, but that's just because of the speed tune. It's just the easiest way to get the speed tune, so I went with that. So he needs his accuracy. Obviously he also has a decreased defense on his A1, but then on his A2 he's got 2 poisons and a HP burn, and that's where most of his damage is going to come from. That and War Master. So really, really focus on getting the accuracy on him. Then survivability stats. Now because he has a passive that spreads some of his damage around, Survivability stats are a little bit easier. So again, you want to be that 3.3 to 3.5k defense. No more is needed for this guy, especially because he's attack based. It's pointless to add anymore. And then for HP, I like to have that a bit higher, like maybe the 45k, but up to 40k is fine. Then you can just get him to 100% critical rate because he doesn't place the buff on himself. A bit of attack and a bit of critical damage works just fine. And then lastly, the slowest champion of the lot is Skull Crusher. Now he needs to be faster than the clan boss, so like 171, or if you're using any sort of speed set, you know, you can put it at 172, so then you have no worries about him accidentally being too slow with decimal points and all of that. Obviously his maximum possible speed is 177, if Farrakhan is 178 and Razin is 179, but I like to keep him a bit slower, keep the gap a bit easier, makes it a lot easier to tune. So aim for him about that 172 to 173 or 4, and then go on after that. So he just prioritizes his A2, opens with it and prioritizes it. Happy days. Now you want to get lots of defense on him. Really, really important for Skull Crusher. Lots and lots of defense. Now, of course, like I said, that his after about 3.5k, he's not going to do a whole lot more with defense, but his damage is also based on defense. And with ally protection, I'll get into that in a minute, but you don't want to be running too high of a critical damage. But back on what to prioritize with Skull Crusher. So you really want to get that defense up. The HP, like I said, if you don't have any Guardian sets on the team, probably aim for like that 45k because he's an ally protection champion. But if you do, then feel free to get a bit higher, and that should be fine. Now you definitely want low accuracy on him. So you don't want him placing that well, I suppose it depends what DPS champion you're running. As you can see, this team nowhere near fills up the debuff bar, not even close. So it doesn't really matter if he has accuracy or not, but if you have a proper DPS setup where he is filling up the debuff bar, then you really want to have low accuracy so he doesn't waste it. Now his critical rate, bring that all the way up to crit cap, so 70% if you have a Farrakhan, or 100% if you don't have an increased critical rate buff. Now back onto the whole critical damage part of him. Now I like to have him really high with defense. That way his hits are actually pretty strong, and those really strong hits, they just help with his healing, with life steal, and of course damage. Now with critical damage, if say for example here, Skull Crusher places ally protection on everybody else, and then they take a hit. Now 50% of that hit is going to go to Skull Crusher, but that's before the Demon Lord's passive kicks in, which amplifies that damage. So it is a small hit he takes. Basically the first hit of the Demon Lord is the damage that he's going to be taking, half of that per champion. But that damage is multiplied in a way, not directly, based on his critical damage. So you want low critical damage so he doesn't take too much of a hit from that. As you could tell with this here, where he died just then, that there is what killed him. Now if we have a look here, damage, Sepulchre Sentinel, she's on like 7 mil, not bad, you know, pretty good. Razin Scarhide is on 14 mil, really good damage. He's the main damage key. Godseeker on 8.6. She could be a lot higher. She could be as high as Razin. Her damage can be really good. Skull Crusher on about 5 mil. Not bad for him considering the team. Again, the blessings there, I'll get into them in a bit. And then Farrakhan with 8.2 million. So yeah, really solid damage there. That team, I'd say they work quite well. It's a 44.3 mil team. Nice and easy. So we'll jump into the builds. We have got, we'll go from fastest to slowest. Again, keep that thing. So she's got a life steal set and a speed set. This is Sepulchre Sentinel. That way it's just easier for me to get the speed tune. Her stats, 40k HP, 4.1k defense, so really on the defense for a bit of extra damage. She's got 240 speed. She's crit cap, really low critical damage at 132, could definitely bump that up, and insanely high accuracy at 290. So a very solid build. Obviously resistance doesn't matter, but yeah, a very solid build for her. As for her A2, that's the one that places the increased defense and block debuffs. That's like the main steeple. She can't really be replaced. If you replace her, you're kind of just changing the entire team. And then the decreased attack on the A1 helps a lot. And then she has got this passive, which can really come in handy, actually. Just for those random moments where maybe you're going for a record damage and you go, wow, how did this run do so much more damage? It's because of a passive, might have procced at the right time. As for her masteries, I'm just going down the left side, picking up deadly precision. I always do, because even if you hit a crit cap, you know, you change gear around. It's not worth anything else. And then picking up Wallmaster. And then I've gone with Steadfast on the support tree, so make sure she never takes a stun. That was for a different clan boss team. With this team, I've got Skullcrusher in there, who doesn't place counterattack on himself, so he will be taking the stun. And then I'm just going down, you know, and picking up Laura Steel for easier stats, and then also picking up the other two masteries, Master Hexer and Sniper, just to help with that decreased attack that she places. If I had a blessing with her, it could be Cruelty, could be Phantom Touch, but it doesn't work very well with her because she's defense based. Crushing Rend works quite nice if it's 6-star. But yeah, see, Phantom Touch is damage based on attack, yeah. So it's not great on her, but if you've got Cruelty on someone else and you don't have a 6-star blessing for then yeah, go with that. Now as for Godseeker and Area, I've got her on a Guardian set and an Immortal set to help with the heals. Because obviously Guardian set's not going to heal quite as much as a Lifesteal set, so Immortal just helps that out a little bit. Her stats come to 50k HP, 3.6k defense. I would like to see that a bit higher. 181 speed, 71% critical rate, 234% critical damage, so not bad. As you can see, I can get a lot more damage out of her. If I put another 1000 defense on her and a little bit more critical damage, then I'll be sweet. Then her damage would really skyrocket. As for her skills, you know, the A2 is the one that does a nice heal. Got to get it booked down to a 3-turn for this team to work. A1 does some heals, so some books are useful there as well. And then her A3 doesn't matter for this, but she's a great champion, so it's great to have booked regardless. For the blessing, I've gone with Cruelty, so she's my one champion with Cruelty. Generally, your highest blessing champion is going to be the one with Cruelty on it. As for her masteries, going down to Wallmaster again. And then of course I also got in the defense tree. That helps with her survivability with her Guardian set. With high critical damage, she takes a little bit extra damage because Guardian set works similar to Ally Protection. So that's why I have a bit of extra defense and damage mitigation on her there. With her stats, you know, I just got a HP percentage on the boots, critical damage on the gauntlets. That really helps because this is a low speed team, and I also only have to build to 70% critical rate. With Spellcaster Sentinel, I went to crit cap, and I still managed to get defense percentage on the boots. I forgot to show that before, which is really hard to do to get that sort of speed without speed boots, but it is possible. Also with Spellcaster Sentinel, definitely needs to make sure that her A2 is fully booked, and having books on A1 is also good. Now Razin, he's got Bloodthirst, which is pretty much a lifesteal and a perception set because of the accuracy. So that really keeps him healed up and keeps him going with 264 critical damage. So really nice, but not insane. 82% critical rate, 245 accuracy, 179 speed, 4.2k defense, and 45k HP. That's all you need to get a 2k with him. Does some solid damage there. Speed on the boots, so that way I could really focus on critical rate and critical damage in the substats of all the other gear. Also allows me to run critical damage on the gauntlets. Yeah. Now, if he had a blessing, I would easily straight up go to Brimstone. He's the only legendary on the team, Brimstone. Insane damage this can do. Absolutely bonkers, hey. A3 doesn't matter for clan boss. It's good for arena though. A2 we need you want book downs, that way you get to use it more. And then the A1 you also want booked, but it's not entirely necessary because you get 6 hits off, so you get a decent amount of chance to get a strip. So maybe don't worry about that. Now, as for his masteries, we went down, picking up methodical because that adds up over time, and only picking up kill streaks, then we can pick up Giant Slayer. That's a crucial part with him. Giant Slayer will really amp up his damage a ton. And then I went for the sport tree just to help with Master Hexer, so I get that chance to extend the weaken and the decreased defense. But I've got Farrakhan the Fat, so that's not too much. It's mainly just extending the weaken from his A2. Yeah, that's pretty much his build. Bloodthirst, like I said, it's pretty much the same as the other stuff. You can run him in Guardian set, but he takes a fair bit of damage because of the high critical damage you want to build him on. But also, yeah, if it works, it works. You can sort of do what you want with that. Any sort of DPS champion, any DPS slot will also work just fine there. Then we've got Farrakhan the Fat. Thing I like about Farrakhan the Fat is it's easy. Again, Bloodthirst, Perception, pretty simple there. Tell you what, I'll just go through, show you the basic stuff. It's all pretty simple at the moment. Their stats, their gear, and I'll just give you a little idea of what we can use for alternates. So for example, Sepulchre Sentinel in this team is crucial. She is absolutely crucial. That's what this team is built entirely around her. As for Godseeker, her role is crucial, but the champion is not. So for Godseeker, you need any champion with an increased buff on a 3-turn cooldown. Now Godseeker is great because she brings heals with it. Other champion you can use is Soundless Survivor. She's great because she brings an ally protection. Anchorite, he's fantastic because he brings increased critical rate. Then you got Oella. She also brings a ton of heals, but I would recommend, or you need to turn off her A3. Now Corvus the Corruptor is amazing. He's defense based as well. He helps with a lot of damage with poisons, debuffs. Really good champion, like an amazing champion for the extend buff. Oh yeah, for Farrakhan the Fat, Phantom Touch is a great option for him. Increases attack and gets a few hits out there for damage. Anyway, back to the increased buff champions. That new champion, or new at the time of this video, we got Grazor Irongut. You turn off his A3, that'll help a lot. And then he's got a massive, insane shield, insane damage with his max HP hit. Really crazy champion for an increased buff champion. Also with Farrakhan the Fat, you can pick up the mastery that resets his ability, because like I said, you can run him in reflex. Wow, I'm all over the place, aren't I? Now, of course, for rare options, you have got Valerie and Hellborn Sprite to replace Godseeker. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the champions. Now, as for Skull Crusher, as you can see here, he is an ally protection champion. So that is your priority there, getting an ally protection champion. He is great because he brings the counter attack, which is what really helps his team with stripping the increased attack and bringing damage. Skull Crusher, he's not crucial, but he feels crucial for what he brings. Like I said, his HP is a bit high at 53k. Defense is insane at 5,000 defense. And then about that 126 critical damage. Now with Skull Crusher, I would recommend getting around that 125% critical damage. Now naturally, the lower means he's going to take less damage, so that's fantastic. But at 126, he deals enough damage that if you can get a shield ring or 2 on him, he can put a decent shield on him. You can trust that he's going to heal up, even if Warmaster does not proc. And I got defense percentage on the boots, and on the chest, and on the amulet. That's how I got his defense so damn high. Now, of course, his counterattack doesn't get placed on himself, so I got 1 counterattack accessory, and of course the 2 shield accessories to bump up that shield as much as I can there. His masteries are picking up War Master. Now his support tree is what I've got. I would not recommend support tree at all for him. I would reset it, but it costs gems. I would definitely go down the defense tree, you know, pick up all the same things that you see me pick up with Gourd Seeker. But then with Skull Crusher, you can also pick up the counter-attacking masteries, which would be amazing for him. So yeah, you know, increase some healing, some shields, that sort of stuff. And just damage mitigation. But yeah, he's a really, really good champion. I really wish I had the gems or had the bother to switch out his masteries here. You know, you can pick up Retribution. That'll help him a lot with more damage, you know, counter attacks, more heals, more damage. Deterrence doesn't really matter with this team because we do have block buffs. Again, I'd still pick up, you know, the critical rate, critical damage, and then just straight down the left is what I'll do, and just done what I highlighted there in the defense tree, and I wouldn't worry about the support tree at all. That support tree there is for a different build in a different team for a different thing that I was running, but yeah, defense tree is definitely his strong suit there. As for replacing the DPS champions, any DPS champion will work, really, as long as they don't mess up the team. Ideally, you want to bring decreased defense and a buff strip or a block buffs. Ally attack is amazing. Increased critical rate is amazing. But yeah, pretty simple team. Cheers. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.